It was 8:37 p.m., the exact moment Victor Moretti, the state's most feared food critic, sat down at table 12. My restaurant's fate hinged on his review. But as I handed the critic his appetizer, my phone vibrated. A text from Jennifer. "Come to the office. Now." Her words were urgent, panic-stricken. I found her at my desk, white-faced, staring at an anonymous email accusing me of gambling away the restaurant's money. Seconds later, Victor appeared, holding his phone, the same email. Jennifer burst into tears, begging him to understand. The room froze. Her performance was perfect. The trembling lips, the pleading eyes. But I saw it, the flicker of triumph behind her mask. For years, she'd whispered lies to our friends, painting me as a liar. Now, she'd weaponized those lies to destroy me. The critic left without a word. My reputation, my marriage, my legacy, all crumbling in real time. That night, I realized the truth. Jennifer hadn't just betrayed me. She'd declared war. And I was about to fight back. If you are watching this right now, drop a comment, letting me know where you are viewing from. Kindly hit the like and subscribe to hear more real stories about family loyalty and betrayal. They might just change how you see your own relationships. My name is Carl Albright. It was a Tuesday night. The dinner rush at my restaurant, the Hearth and Vine, was in full swing, and I was in my element. For 25 years, this place had been my dream, my sanctuary, my legacy. Every plate that left my kitchen was a small piece of my soul, crafted with care. At 51, I still got a thrill seeing the happy faces of my customers, the way they savored a perfectly cooked scallop or a rich, velvety chocolate lava cake. My wife, Jennifer, was supposed to be my anchor in this chaotic, beautiful world. At 45, she was the elegant hostess, the smiling face that greeted our patrons, the one who remembered their favorite tables and their children's names. To everyone else, we were the perfect couple. The successful restaurateur and his charming partner. They didn't see the quiet, venomous whispers behind closed doors. They didn't hear the slow, methodical drip of poison she'd been leaking into the minds of our friends for years, turning them against me, one lie at a time. Tonight, however, was different. It wasn't just another busy night. It was the night we were being reviewed by Victor Moretti, the most influential food critic in the state. His word could make or break a restaurant. I was a bundle of nerves, but I masked it with a calm I didn't feel, orchestrating my staff like a general in a war. Jennifer, as always, played her part. She floated through the dining room, a vision in a silk dress, her laughter like wind chimes. But I saw the flicker in her eyes, the subtle tightening of her jaw when she thought no one was looking. She hated that my passion, my restaurant, often overshadowed her. And I was about to learn just how far her resentment would take her. Around 8:30 p.m., just as Victor was settling in with his tasting menu, my phone buzzed on the stainless steel counter of the pass-through window between the kitchen and the dining room. It was a text from Jennifer. I normally ignored my phone during service, but something in the urgency of the 3 rapid-fire messages made me glance at the screen. "Jen, you need to come to the office now. Jen, don't ignore this. It's important. Jen, I'm serious, Carl. Something's wrong." My stomach dropped. This wasn't her usual passive-aggressive tone. This was panicked. I excused myself to Roberto, my sous chef and the closest thing I had to a brother, telling him I needed a minute. As I wiped my hands on my apron and headed toward my small office at the back of the restaurant, a sense of dread coiled in my gut. Jennifer was sitting at my desk, bathed in the glow of my computer monitor. She looked up at me, her face pale, her eyes wide with a terror that seemed utterly genuine. "What is it?" I asked, my voice tight. "Read it," she whispered, pushing the laptop towards me. It just came through, from an anonymous email address. I leaned in, my eyes scanning the screen. The subject line was simple: be careful. The body of the email was short, but it felt like a physical blow, knocking the air from my lungs. "Carl isn't telling you the truth about the new supplier. He's been skimming from the accounts to cover his gambling debts. Check the books before he sinks this place, and you with it. He's not the man you think he is." My blood ran cold. Gambling debts? Skimming from the accounts? It was a complete fabrication, a cruel and elaborate lie. But who would send this? And why? Before I could even form a coherent thought, the office door creaked open. Standing there was Victor Moretti, the food critic, a look of profound disappointment on his face. He held up his own phone, displaying the exact same email. "Mr. Albright," he said, his voice devoid of the warmth it might have held an hour ago. "A moment, please?" Jennifer gasped, a perfect, theatrical sound of shock. "Oh my God, Carl. How could you?" she cried out, her voice dripping with a manufactured anguish that was a masterclass in deception. She turned to Victor. "I'm so sorry. I had no idea. He's been so secretive lately." And just like that, in the space of 30 seconds, the foundation of my world cracked. The one person who was supposed to have my back had just become my most devastating accuser, armed with a lie so perfectly timed it had to be intentional. I looked from Victor's skeptical face to Jennifer's tear-streaked, innocent expression, and I knew, with a certainty that chilled me to the bone, that this was just the beginning. The war had just been declared, and I was fighting it completely blind. The rest of the night was a blur of humiliation. I managed to convince Victor to stay and finish his meal, to at least give my food a fair chance, but the magic was gone. His questions were pointed, his demeanor guarded. I could see the wheels turning in his head, the seed of doubt Jennifer had planted taking root. He left without saying a word about his review, which was in itself a damning verdict. Jennifer followed me home, a picture of contrition. "I'm so sorry, Carl," she sobbed, burying her face in my chest as I stood stiffly in our foyer. "I was so scared. When I got that email, I didn't know what to think. It sounded so unlike you." "It's a lie, Jen," I said, my voice hollow. "A complete and utter lie." "I know that now," she whispered, pulling back to look at me with red-rimmed eyes. "But in that moment, I saw red. All these months you've been distant, distracted. I thought maybe you were in trouble and too proud to ask for help." Her performance was flawless. It was the same performance she'd given our friends for years whenever I'd tried to bring up a problem or disagree with her. She was the victim, and I was the villain. I wanted to shake her, to scream at her that this was different, that this was a calculated attack designed to destroy me. But I had no proof. Only an anonymous email and her word against mine. And in our world, her word was currency. Mine was suddenly worthless. For the next week, the whispers started. First, it was a call from my sister, asking if everything was okay. "I read that review," she said hesitantly. "It sounds like things are stressful at the restaurant." Then it was Anne, a friend of ours for over 20 years, who called to check in. "Jennifer mentioned you've been under a lot of financial pressure," she said, her tone laced with a pity that felt like an accusation. "Is it true about the gambling?" Each call was another nail in my coffin, hammered in by my own wife. She was systematically dismantling my reputation, my relationships, my life, all from behind a mask of concern. I felt powerless, adrift in a sea of lies, watching the shore of my life get farther and farther away. I knew I had to do something. I couldn't just stand by and let her burn my world to the ground. I had to find a way to fight back, to prove my innocence and expose the rot that had been festering in my own home for far too long. The question was, how do you fight a ghost? How do you prove a negative? I had to start listening, really listening, and I had to start recording everything. The week following the Victor Moretti incident was the longest of my life. I moved out of our bedroom, citing the need for space while things cooled down. The truth was, I couldn't bear to sleep in the same bed as the woman who was systematically trying to annihilate me. Each night, I'd lie awake in the guest room, replaying the events of that Tuesday, the look on Victor's face, the sound of Jennifer's fake sobs. The anger was a low, constant burn in my gut, a fire I was terrified would either extinguish me or consume me completely. During the day, I threw myself into my work at the restaurant. It was the one place where I still felt in control. Roberto, my loyal sous chef, was a rock. He never asked questions, just worked alongside me, his silent presence a steady comfort. "Don't let her get to you, boss," he'd said one evening, wiping down the stainless steel counter. "People will see the truth soon enough." I hoped he was right, but a seed of doubt had been planted in my own mind. If Jennifer was willing to go this far, what else was she capable of? The breaking point came on a Wednesday night. I came home late, exhausted after a 14-hour day. I walked into the kitchen to find Jennifer hosting a small dinner party for Anne and her husband, Tom, and our other close friends, Chris and Susan. The table was set beautifully, candles were lit, and the smell of roasted chicken filled the air. On the surface, it was the picture of domestic bliss. But I could feel the tension humming beneath the surface like a live wire. "Carl, you're just in time," Jennifer said, her smile a little too bright. We were just about to pour the wine. "Actually, Jen, I'm beat," I said, rubbing the back of my neck. "I think I'm just going to grab a beer and head to bed." The smile vanished. "Carl, we're eating now. You can't just disappear." "I think I can," I replied, my voice flat. I turned to the fridge to grab a beer, and as I did, I heard Jennifer's voice, loud enough for everyone to hear. "Oh, don't mind him," she said to the table, her tone dripping with a false sweetness. "He's just been so stressed lately. Honestly, I'm worried about him. He's been acting so paranoid, convinced people are out to get him. It's like he has this persecution complex. Maybe he needs to talk to someone." Chris snickered. "Yeah, Carl, you do seem a little on edge." The blood rushed to my face. She was doing it again, right in front of them, twisting my reality, painting me as unstable for questioning her lies. I felt a rage so intense it almost blinded me. I spun around, the beer bottle cold and slick in my hand. "You know what, Jennifer? I am on edge. I'm on edge because my wife is conspiring with our friends to ruin my business and my reputation with anonymous emails and vicious gossip." "Carl, stop it," she shrieked, her face contorting with fury. "You're drunk and delusional." That's when I saw it. A flicker in Anne's eyes. A moment of uncertainty. My outburst had cracked her perfect facade, if only for a second. And in that second, I knew what I had to do. I couldn't win this battle by shouting. I had to fight her with her own weapon, information. The next morning, I went to an electronics store and bought a small, discreet digital voice recorder. It was about the size of a pack of gum. For the next 2 weeks, I lived a double life. By day, I was the grieving, confused husband, giving Jennifer the silent treatment, letting her believe her campaign of isolation was working. By night, I was a spy in my own home. I would strategically place the recorder on a bookshelf in the living room before I went to bed, or sometimes I'd carry it in my pocket, my thumb hovering over the record button during any forced, stilted conversations we had. The things I uncovered in those recordings were worse than I could have ever imagined. It wasn't just one malicious lie. It was a systematic, years-long campaign of psychological warfare. One night, I pressed play on a recording from the previous week. It was Jennifer on the phone with Anne. Jennifer, on recording, honestly, and the man is a child. "Remember when he said he wanted to invest in that new pasta machine? I told you he was just trying to find ways to waste money. And that story about the supplier? Total fabrication. He probably just lost a bet at the golf course and needed an excuse. And, on recording, wow. I never would have guessed. He seems so stable." Jennifer, on recording, "Oh, he's a great actor. That's his problem. All that charm he uses on his customers? It's all a show. At home, he's just angry and resentful. He resents me for being the stable one, for holding everything together." I listened to that, my hands clenched into fists, my knuckles white. She was taking the very traits that made me a good businessman. My ambition, my passion, my occasional stress, and twisting them into character flaws to make me seem dangerous and unstable. She was gaslighting me on a grand scale, and she had been doing it for years. My investigation went deeper. I started going through our finances, something I had naively trusted her with completely. I downloaded months of bank statements to my laptop and began cross-referencing them with dates and times from my recordings. The patterns were sickeningly clear. There were dozens of small, cash withdrawals from ATMs near expensive spas, boutiques, and restaurants. All places she claimed to be meeting the girls for lunch. But the recordings told a different story. I found a recording from a month ago. Jennifer was laughing with Susan on the phone. "Susan, on recording, Tom had such a great time on your girls' trip to the Cape last month." Jennifer, on recording, "Oh, he did. We all did. It's so nice to get away." But the bank statement I pulled up for that same period showed a $2,000 charge at a high-end jewelry store in Boston, followed by a $400 dinner bill at a romantic waterfront restaurant for two. It wasn't a girls' trip. It was a tryst. She was using the money meant for our shared life to fund her affair with Susan's husband, and then using her lies about me to cover her tracks. The betrayal was so complete, so multi-layered, that it made me physically ill. The friends she was poisoning against me weren't just collateral damage. They were her accomplices, willingly or not. Holding this proof in my hands was both terrifying and exhilarating. The rage was still there, but now it was cold and hard like diamond. It wasn't just about clearing my name anymore. It was about justice. It was about dismantling the empire of lies she had built so carefully, brick by poisonous brick. And I knew exactly how I was going to do it. I was going to throw a party, her favorite kind of party, and I was going to invite all the actors in her little drama. They would all get a front row seat to the truth. They would finally see the puppet master pulling the strings, and they would see just what kind of monster she really was. The dinner party where Jennifer accused me of paranoia was the final nail in the coffin of my denial. After that night, something inside me snapped. The man who had tried to reason, who had hoped for the best, who had believed that our friends would eventually see the truth, was gone. In his place was someone colder, harder, and filled with a chilling sense of purpose. The recordings I had been collecting were no longer just evidence. They were ammunition. Each clipped, venomous sentence she uttered was a bullet I would one day fire back. For 2 weeks, I played the part of the defeated husband. I'd come home, say little, and retreat to my office or the guest room. I let her think her campaign was working, that she had successfully isolated me and broken my spirit. I watched her carefully, studying her, learning the rhythm of her deceit. She grew bolder, her lies more elaborate. She started telling people I was seeing a therapist for anger issues. She hinted that I had a drinking problem. Every conversation was a minefield, and she was the one planting the explosives. The breaking point, the moment I knew I could no longer live like this, came on a Friday afternoon. I was in my office, reviewing the restaurant's books, trying to make sense of the financial bleeding she had caused. Roberto knocked and let himself in, closing the door behind him. He looked serious. "Carl, we need to talk," he said, leaning against the doorframe. "About what?" I asked, not looking up from the spreadsheet on my screen. "About her," he said simply. "About what's going on." My heart sank. Had she gotten to him too? Was I completely alone? What about her? "I heard you two arguing the other night," he said. "About money. About the supplier. She told you that." I finally looked at him, my eyes searching his face for any sign of judgment. "She didn't have to," he replied. "I'm not stupid, Carl. And I'm not deaf. I hear the whispers when we're at the club. I see the way Anne looks at you sometimes, like she's scared of you. But I also see the way Jen looks at you when she thinks no one's watching. Like you're a bug she wants to crush." His words hit me harder than any accusation ever could. Here was my oldest friend, my partner, seeing the truth so clearly. "It's all lies, Roberto," I said, my voice thick with emotion. "Every last bit of it. She's been doing it for years. She's been poisoning everyone against me." I expected him to be shocked. Instead, he nodded slowly, a grim look on his face. "I know," he said quietly. "I've suspected for a long time. I didn't want to believe it. Jennifer has always been so convincing." That's when the dam broke. I stood up, my chair scraping loudly against the floor, and I began to pace the small office. I told him everything. About the anonymous email. About the gambling lie. About the recordings. I played him a short clip of Jennifer on the phone with, and laughing about how she had convinced Susan that I was having an affair. When the recording finished, Roberto was silent for a long moment. His face was a mask of anger and disgust. That brat," he spat, the words tasting like poison in his mouth. "She's a sociopath, Carl. A goddamn sociopath." Hearing him say it, hearing the confirmation from someone I trusted implicitly, was liberating. The crushing weight of isolation I'd been carrying for months lifted, just a little. But it was immediately replaced by a new, more dangerous feeling, resolve. "Roberto, I'm done," I said, stopping to look at him. My voice was low and steady, a stark contrast to the rage that was still simmering within me. "I'm not going to fight her lies with more lies. I'm not going to shout or plead or beg our so-called friends for their trust. They made their choices. They chose to believe her." "So what are you going to do?" he asked, his eyes narrowing. He knew me well enough to know that when my voice got that calm, I was planning something big. "I'm going to give them what they want," I said, a grim smile touching my lips. I'm going to give them the truth. All of it. Over the next few days, I laid out the entire plan for Roberto. He was my only confidant, my co-conspirator. He helped me gather the final pieces of evidence, organizing the audio files and highlighting the damning transactions in my bank statements. The plan was audacious, risky, and required a level of theatricality I never knew I possessed. It was perfect. The venue was set, the hearth and vine itself. The date was set for the following Saturday, exactly 1 month after the Victor Moretti review. I decided to throw a massive party to celebrate the restaurant's anniversary. I sent out invitations to everyone. Our family, our closest friends, the very people who had been poisoned by Jennifer's words. I made sure to put both our names on the invitation as hosts. I even called Jennifer myself to personally invite her parents and a few of her oldest friends, making sure she couldn't refuse without raising suspicion. When she asked what the occasion was, I told her the truth. I'm throwing a party to thank the people who have supported me through a very difficult time, I said, my voice dripping with false sincerity. And to prove to them that I'm not the man you've been telling them I am. Her face went white with fury, but she masked it instantly. Whatever you're planning, Carl, it won't work. They trust me. They believe me. Oh, I know, I said, leaning in close. But they've never seen the receipts. Or heard your voice. Not like this. The week leading up to the party was a flurry of activity. Roberto and I worked tirelessly, setting up a projector and a large screen in the main dining area. We created a presentation, a meticulous timeline of her betrayal, complete with audio clips, emails, text messages, and highlighted bank statements. It was my case, laid bare for all to see. I practiced my opening speech a dozen times, until every word was perfect. I wasn't going to scream or yell. I was going to be calm, sad, and devastatingly factual. I was going to tell a story, the true story of our marriage, her lies, and my silence. On the day of the party, I woke up feeling a strange sense of peace. The rage was gone, replaced by a cold, clear determination. I dressed in my best suit, the same one I wore for important investor meetings. When Jennifer came downstairs, she was stunning, wearing a sleek black dress that was meant to command attention. She looked at me, a flicker of uncertainty in her eyes. "You look serious," she said, running a hand down my tie. "I am," I replied, taking her hand. It felt cold in mine. "Tonight, everything ends, Jennifer. For good." She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. It was the smile of a cornered animal, all teeth and no warmth. She had no idea what was coming. She thought she was hosting a party as the beloved queen of the castle. She had no idea that tonight, she was the one on trial. And the jury was composed of all the people whose opinions she had so carefully curated and so cruelly manipulated. Tonight, they would all render their verdict. And I would be there to read it aloud. The hearth and vine was buzzing. The air was thick with the scent of garlic bread and expensive perfume, the sound of laughter and clinking glasses filling every corner. On the surface, it was the perfect anniversary party. The tables were adorned with white roses and flickering candles. Soft jazz played from the speakers. Our guests mingled, a sea of familiar faces, family, colleagues, and the tight-knit circle of friends who were about to have their world shattered. Jennifer was in her element. She was a whirlwind of grace and charm, her arm linked with Tom's, laughing at something Chris said, refilling wine glasses, ensuring everyone felt welcome. She was playing the perfect hostess, the devoted wife. She shot me a few covert glances, smirks that said, "See? Nothing you can do. You look ridiculous in that suit. This is my night." She had no idea that I was the director of this entire play, and the final act was about to begin. I circulated through the crowd, shaking hands, accepting condolences and well wishes with a calm I didn't feel. I saw the curiosity in their eyes. They all knew about the trouble at the restaurant. They all knew about the whispers. They were here to see the fallout, to witness the train wreck. They had no idea they were the exhibit themselves. At 9 p.m., I tapped my glass with a fork, and the chatter died down. All eyes turned to me. Jennifer stopped mid-laugh, a curious look on her face. "Thank you all for coming tonight," I began, my voice clear and steady in the hushed room. "As many of you know, the Hearth and Vine has been going through a difficult period. There have been rumors, lies, and attacks on my character, my business, and my family. I paused, letting the words hang in the air. I saw Jennifer straighten up, a triumphant glint in her eye. This was her moment. What you haven't heard, I continued, is the truth. I've spent the last month listening to a lot of things I wish I could unhear. I've seen things that have broken my heart, not because of what they've done to me, but because of what they've revealed about the person I thought I was married to. Jennifer's face began to pale. "Carl, what are you doing?" she hissed, her voice low enough for only me to hear. I ignored her and gestured to the large projection screen behind the bar, which had been blank until now. For months, my wife, Jennifer, has been telling people that I am unstable, that I have anger issues, that I'm gambling away our money. I clicked a button on the remote in my hand. The screen lit up with a single photo of Jennifer and Anne, smiling at a cafe. "Tonight, I want to let you hear what she really thinks," I said, my voice dropping. "And I want you to hear it in her own words." I pressed play. Jennifer's voice, bright and cheerful, filled the restaurant. "Oh, he's so stressed. You know how men are, always making up problems to get attention. Like that time he said the supplier was cheating us, but it was just him overspending at the casino." The room was dead silent. Every eye was fixed on the screen, then on Jennifer. Her smile was frozen, a grotesque mask of shock and denial. Tom, sitting next to her, shifted uncomfortably in his chair. That's taken out of context," she stammered, her voice trembling. "Oh, I don't think so," I said calmly, clicking to the next slide. It was a highlighted bank statement. "Because according to this, there hasn't been a single withdrawal from a casino in over 2 years. But there is this." I zoomed in on a line item. "A $1,200 charge at the Serenity Spa. The day after you told Susan I needed to calm down." Jennifer shot to her feet, her face crimson with rage. "Carl, turn that off," she screamed, her voice cracking. "This is insane." But it was too late. The spell was broken. I moved through the presentation like a prosecutor delivering a closing argument. There was the audio of her laughing with Susan about inventing the story of my supposed affair. There were the receipts for the expensive gifts she'd bought for Tom, hidden in the groceries budget. There was the damning email, sent from an anonymous account, timed perfectly to sabotage Victor Moretti's review. "This wasn't a one-time mistake, a moment of weakness," I said, my voice growing colder. "This was a campaign, a years-long, calculated campaign of psychological warfare designed to isolate me, destroy my reputation, and ruin the one thing I have ever truly loved." I swiveled to face her, my eyes boring into hers. "You used our friends. You used my passion. You used this restaurant as a weapon against me." The fallout was immediate and brutal. The whispers started a low, angry buzz that grew louder and louder. People started looking at Jennifer, not with pity or confusion, but with dawning horror and a deep, simmering anger. They felt foolish. They felt used. Chris, a big, burly man, stood up and glared at her. "Jennifer," he said, his voice shaking with fury, "is any of this true?" She looked around the room, at the faces of the people she had betrayed, and for the first time, the mask of charm and control completely shattered. She looked like a cornered animal, terrified and alone. She opened her mouth, but no sound came out. She looked at me, pure, unadulterated hatred in her eyes. "You're a monster," she hissed at me. "And you're a liar," I replied, my voice ringing with finality. "And you have no friends left to lie to." That's when the exodus began. It wasn't a loud, dramatic scene. It was a quiet, devastating stampede. People started grabbing their coats, muttering excuses, and walking out, avoiding her gaze. And was the first to leave, rushing past us without a word, her face buried in her hands. Then Susan. Then Chris and his wife. One by one, they filed out of the restaurant, leaving a trail of shattered illusions in their wake. Within 20 minutes, the dining room was empty, save for Roberto, who stood by the door with a look of grim satisfaction, and me. Jennifer was still standing there, frozen in the middle of the room. The triumphant hostess was gone. The venomous accuser was gone. All that was left was a 45-year-old woman in an expensive dress, utterly and completely alone. The silence in the restaurant was deafening, broken only by the soft hum of the refrigerators and the sound of her ragged breathing. She had wanted an audience, and she had gotten one. and they had all rendered their verdict. She was the outcast. My revenge wasn't a shout. It was the deafening sound of her own life falling silent. The weeks that followed were strangely peaceful. The scandal at the Hearth and Vine did generate press, but not the kind we expected. My presentation, leaked anonymously to a local food blog, went viral. The story wasn't about a failing restaurant. It was about a husband's quiet dignity in the face of monstrous betrayal. Customers, old and new, flocked to the restaurant, not just to eat my food, but to show their support. They left notes in the comment book, praising my honesty and vowing never to trust gossip again. Our reservations were booked solid for months. In a strange twist of fate, Jennifer's poison had inadvertently become my most potent marketing tool. Roberto and I worked side by side, rebuilding our team, our reputation, and our bond. He was more than a partner. He was family. We talked for hours about what had happened, about the years of lies I had endured in silence. He confessed he had suspected something was wrong for a long time, but had been too afraid to say anything, afraid of making things worse. "I should have had your back, Carl," he said, his voice full of regret. "I won't ever fail you again." My relationship with my family was repaired. My sister apologized profusely for ever doubting me. Seeing the truth laid bare had been a wake-up call for everyone who had known me. They saw the man I had always been, not the caricature Jennifer had created. Dating was slow. I wasn't ready for anything serious. The wound Jennifer had inflicted was too deep. But then, Eleanor re-entered my life. She was an old family friend, someone who had always believed in me, even when I didn't believe in myself. She had watched from afar as Jennifer slowly poisoned my world, and she had quietly kept her distance, waiting for the storm to pass. We started taking walks, having coffee. Her belief in me was a balm on my wounded soul. She didn't try to fix me or rush me. She just listened. With her, I was starting to feel whole again. As for Jennifer, she became a ghost. A pariah. She sold her engagement ring and moved out of our house, renting a small apartment in another town. She tried reaching out to our old friends, but the response was universally cold. I heard through Roberto that she had texted and once, begging for forgiveness. Anne's reply was a single chilling word. Don't. She was completely and utterly alone. The very thing she had craved, attention, admiration, a place in the center of our social circle, was now the thing she could never have again. Karma, it turned out, was a far more effective punisher than I could ever have been. One evening, about 2 months after the party, I was at the Hearth and Vine, closing up. Roberto had already left. I was wiping down the bar, lost in thought, when the bell above the door chimed. I looked up, expecting a late customer, or maybe Eleanor stopping by. It was a young man, probably in his early 20s, with an earnest face and an apron slung over his shoulder. He looked nervous. "Mr. Albright?" he asked hesitantly. "That's me," I said, drying my hands on a towel. "My name is Leo," he said, sticking out his hand. "I got your number from Roberto. He gave me your resume." I stared at him, confused for a moment. Then it clicked. Roberto had mentioned a promising young chef he'd met at a culinary competition, someone with incredible talent but no connections, someone he thought I should meet. "He said you might be looking for a sous chef," Leo said, his words coming out in a rush. "I know I don't have much experience, but I work hard. I learn fast. Roberto said you were the best, and that you valued passion above all else." I looked at this kid, this stranger, and I saw a spark. I saw the same fire I had felt when I first started out. I thought about the legacy I wanted to leave, not just a successful restaurant, but a place where talent could grow, where passion could thrive, free from the shadow of deceit and betrayal. I smiled, a genuine, warm smile that I hadn't felt in a long time. "Roberto doesn't steer me wrong," I said, extending my hand. "Welcome to the Hearth and Vine, Leo. Let's see what you can do." He shook my hand, his grip firm, his eyes shining with hope. As he walked towards the kitchen, I stood there for a moment, alone in the quiet restaurant. The tables were clean, the floors were polished, and the air smelled of lemon cleaner and fresh coffee. It was peaceful. It was mine. Jennifer had tried to burn my world down. She had failed. In the ashes of her lies, I hadn't just survived. I had found a way to rebuild, stronger and better than before. And as I looked towards the kitchen, I knew that this was just the beginning. The best was yet to come. Thank you for spending your time with my story. Feel free to share your thoughts or reactions in the comments. I'd love to hear from you.